Hi, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Profiles in Canada. I'm Kaelem, and today's guest is going to be familiar to many of us from coast to coast, and that's because Les Stroud is the Chief Scout of Canada. He's the Chief Scout of our movement, of our Scouts Canada movement here in this country. And I will say about Les, if there's anybody that I would want to be stranded in the wilderness with and survive, it would be him. And that's because he's done it himself so many times, from the Australian outback to Canada's boreal forest, from Patagonia to the far north. Les has survived it all. And along the way, he's picked up a record 27 Canadian Screen Awards, and he's been parodied by Michael Scott in The Office. Les, Chief Scout, thanks so much for joining us today. It's so good to be speaking with you.
It's really nice to be here. And quick correction, it's actually now 31 Canadian Screen Awards.
31 screen,
31,
congratulations.
but that's 31 nominations and 4 wins. But I don't know that any of them compares to being parodied by Steve Carell and Michael Scott and on The Office. That was definitely a big highlight for me.
That's wonderful. And by the way, for folks at home, you can catch all of Les's episodes on YouTube, on his website. And I'm sure you could find that clip from The Office online too. Les, we say that it starts with Scouts. And so I was wondering if we could start this interview with Scouts. What does it mean to you to be Scouts Canada's Chief Scout? And I wonder what you've enjoyed most about the role so far.
Mm. It was a huge honor. It was a really interesting phone call when it came about. I don't want to speak out of turn. I believe often, if not always, the chief scout tends to be the governor general. And when I was contacted, they said that actually, because I often mention scouting, and because of what I've done with Survivorman and other work, that it was sort of a unanimous kind of decision that they asked if I would take on that role, which was out of the box because normally that's not how they do it. But I was certainly thrilled and honored. Right from the beginning when I was first doing, let's say, Survivor Man, I knew I was making a show for adults. That's true, but I knew that the scouts would love it. It's just this is hand in glove when it comes to the sensibilities of scouting and so on. And so certainly quickly along the way, I started to see that happen. I started to see so many scouts getting interested in Survivor Man and scout leaders doing Survivor Man weekends and hosting Survivor Man nights and all of that. So it's been really a big honor to then, towards the end of it, become Canada's chief scout. Um, and I think that it's this thought that we're looking to be better human beings, but we are keeping as our baseline this connection to nature.
Hmm.
I've never been someone to espouse using nature. I'm not against it. I'm okay with, trail running and cross-country skiing and adventure races and this, that. That's all great. But notice the difference here. That's using nature for an activity. To
Hmm.
me, it's about connecting with nature, and that's a whole different aspect altogether. When you connect with nature, for example, I can't connect with nature if I'm mountain biking.
Hmm.
I'm there to mountain bike. Sure, I'm in nature, but I'm not connecting to it. And I love that there's time with scouting through the learning processes of whether it's everything from how to splint a broken ankle to how to get a fire going. It's still, in nature, so to speak. Or if we want to say out in nature, and say it that way. And I just think it's the perfect organization to celebrate nature, and to use the celebration of nature to better ourselves as human beings.
Well, that's a fantastic encapsulation of what our organization hopes to do. I wonder, Les, obviously, as we've mentioned, you are a filmographer. You are someone who has gone out into the great outdoors and tried to capture it on tape to show us back at home. And I wonder what led you down that path? What convinced you I need to go survive for 7 days with nothing but a camera in the high north, for example?
It was the fact that in the end, I'm sort of a closeted teacher. I've always
Hmm.
thought of myself as a teacher. In fact, I was going to become a teacher at one point.
Oh, lovely.
I love teaching. I've learned that I have a knack. Maybe it's because I wasn't a good student, but I have a knack to teach people. And so when I fell in love with being an outdoor guide and learning all of the different adventure skills from sea kayaking and whitewater canoeing to dog sledding and winter camping, and of course to survival, which is just one of the silos, I immediately, started then. Once I got to an intermediate level, I could be an intern or an assistant teacher. And once I got to a level of proficiency, high proficiency, I could teach. And survival was like that. And I saw that, you know, I did teach survival and I'd like to continue to teach survival. But we also back then, way back then, there was some video work, but it was very amateur. It wasn't really all that good. We loved it because we were geeking out on the survival skills. But technically and creatively, it didn't really hold you like a film would or a nice documentary. And I just, the other pathway that I travel in this world, I've always traveled on two lanes: my adventurous life and my musical life.
Hmm.
When I can combine them, I have something, well, like what I have really right now, which is I do a lot of celebrating nature through music. But the musical side is one of the manifestations of my creativity. And I just knew that I was strong. I loved visuals. I loved teaching. I love storytelling. And I just thought, the right way to teach these skills would be to actually need them. Well, then
Hmm.
how do you film it? Well, if you're filming it with a bunch of people, then you don't actually need them, do you? Because you're just going to go home or you're going to do the scenes. Oh, no, no. How do I do this? Oh my gosh, the only way I can do this is if I go out and actually do survival like I'm already doing as a survival instructor. But I film myself. Well, how do you film yourself? This was going way back when nobody was doing this. Nobody, there were no cell phones. There was no way of, people didn't film themselves. And I thought somehow, some way, I think I got to figure this out. And it wasn't until the year 2000. And what happened was the invention or existence of smaller cameras, but with a high enough quality that not like the old wedding videography high eight cameras, but higher quality came around. And that's when I realized, okay, I can film myself because this isn't a lot of gear. So I will teach myself filming and teach myself editing and teach myself storytelling through the camera work, and started to do that. And eventually that led me to saying, why don't I film my survival stuff? And from that, long story short, from that, Survivorman was born.
Wow. Well, we're so glad you have, of course. I wonder, Les, you've been everywhere, as we mentioned, and you've survived everywhere. And you've had so many different experiences. You've had to make use of so many different types of resources. You've faced scarcity of so many different types of resources: food, shelter, water, fire. I wonder, of all of your Survivor Man experiences, which has been the most personally meaningful?
Interesting question. I would have to say, when I undertook the filming of a different series called Beyond Survival, so
Hmm.
still very Survivor Man-y, which is it was me. But what I was doing was I was embedding myself with remote forest dwelling, jungle dwelling, desert dwelling, indigenous cultures.
Hmm.
The Malaysian Sea Gypsies, the Mentawai in Indonesia, the Warani in the Amazon jungle, the
Hmm.
Inuit in the Arctic, and all varying levels from super primitive like the Mentawai to pretty modern like the Inuit and everything in between. And when I did that, what was really great about that was Survivor Man itself was wonderful, but it
Hmm.
was really still very sort of pragmatic and kind of teachy. I'm just showing
Hmm.
you how to build a shelter,
Right.
how to get a fire going in the rain and how to survive when it's cold. But the Beyond Survival series, what changed there was being with these remote indigenous tribes. I then got access to the spiritual side of connecting to nature.
Hmm.
And I witnessed and experienced a lot of different, earth, we'll call them earth ceremonies.
Hmm.
And that really reminded me. I think that towards the end of doing, or at least at a certain point in doing Survivor Man, it was becoming a little bit too much business. I mean, it was very popular.
Right.
There was different kinds of, finances on the table, and all of that makes it very business. And I never got into it for the business. I got
Right.
into it to teach these skills. And so Beyond Survival, that particular series, also available on my YouTube channel. You can, watch it for free. It and connecting with those peoples reminded me that, there is a bigger, more existential, more spiritual aspect to connecting with nature. I've missed it. I've been missing it. This is reminding me. It's giving it back to me. So I'd say that entire series, I mean, really, that whole series was like doing a year-long vision quest. And I
Wow.
know in scouting, sometimes we teach or talk about, the concept of a vision quest, which Native North Americans and First Nations would do, varying of their cultures would do things like going without food and water and stuff like that, to have the visions and so on. It was kind of like a year-long version of doing that with 10 different tribes. So it was pretty
Wow.
special. That really changed my world and kind of got me back on track.
That's incredible. You mentioned obviously the deep spirituality that is inherent in nature that obviously many of us are fortunate to find. And I know that across our country, many scouts, um, particularly in the older years, I should say, and even scouters themselves, are looking to have meaningful adventures in the great outdoors. They're looking to have meaningful experiences, connecting with nature as you've done. I wonder, what advice do you have for scouts across our country who also want to try their hands at survival or some variation thereof?
Mhm. Well, here's a surprising first prologue answer that I would give you, and that is it's why whenever I'm in discussions with the wonderful people at Scouts Canada and we're discussing this and that, I always say, and how are we training the volunteers? How are
Hmm.
the leaders trained? What do they know? And I'm very keen on, and any leaders listening to me right now, you know, be well skilled because every skill you possess, you can then impart onto beavers and cubs and ventures and so on.
Wow.
This is vital. It's really vital that volunteers understand the higher skill level you have, the more effective you will be with our scouting youth. But for the scouts themselves, I would say kind of a very similar thing. I'll use this as my analogy, but it's kind of point for point. When I was an outdoor guide teaching whitewater skills, so what do I need to know for that? I needed to know whitewater instruction. I had to be a very good paddler, all of that. Okay. I needed to know camping.
Hmm.
Okay. I needed to know how to cook on an open fire. And okay. And maybe put up a tarp. And lastly, maybe navigate. Okay. There's a few others, but let's just say those are the basic core skills of being an outdoor guide, guiding a canoe trip. That's great. But here's what I did as well. I also learned any other connective tissue skill that I could that even remotely connected to it. So becoming an expert with map and compass.
Hmm.
And I know we have GPS, we have Garmin's, we have Onyx, we have Caltopa, we have all these different things. I use them all. I love technology. But, being that, edible wild plants, survival skills, in the winter, dog sledding. These things were not part of being a whitewater canoeist. No, they were not. However, while I was guiding whitewater canoeing, I had all of those skills to draw upon. So I often say, take every weekend course, every Thursday night course in a community college, every course you can that connects you to nature, that even loosely is connected to our time in the outdoors. Take those courses. Now, sometimes they're expensive. I understand that. So fine, maybe you can volunteer as an intern and that's how you learn. Now
Hmm.
you're there for free because you're volunteering as an intern and you're learning the skills. That's a great way to do it if it's a financial question. So you learn all of these skills. And the thing about it, why do I go to that kind of pragmatism? Because you increase your confidence. And the minute you're, with a group of other scouts and so on, and you've done this reading, you've watched Survivorman, you've got a book, you've learned skills online from YouTube. here's what the way I often put it. Now, and I'll say also, I'm a search and rescue consultant, and when I teach search and rescue, I do the same. I say the same thing. Make sure that while you're out there, you are an asset, not
Mm,
a liability. This is I don't want to go into like the negative, this is the problem side of it. No, let's go to the positive side of it. It's just that be an asset, man. Always be an asset. When you're an asset, something's gone wrong. Let's say you really took to heart wilderness medicine, and now someone's had an issue. You
right.
can rise to the forefront. You can be that person in them. Let's say you spent a lot of time. God, I used to teach this for learning fire starting. Um, Make it so that when you go that every fire, every outdoor fire you light this summer, only use your flint striker. Next
Mm,
summer, only use rock and steel. Following summer,
mm,
only use the fire bow. If you do that, you'll be so good at the end of the summer, and do it when it's raining. Don't have anything ready to go. Always go and have to make do. And next thing you know, you can get a fire going with a fire bow in the pouring rain.
wow.
And so what are you then? You're an amazing asset. So we're in and again, we're into these situations. We're having our adventures. We're out in nature. Oh my gosh, it's a big rainstorm. It's been raining for 3 days. Someone's getting hypothermic, but we need a fire lit. Let me handle that. I've been working on my fires for 3 years. So it's really, I think what the best advice I can give is to become an asset. Don't let yourself be a liability.
Oh, that's great advice. And as you know, of course, in Scouts, our motto is be prepared. So doesn't that fit in very nicely?
Well, and I guess really, if you want, let's add that on to be prepared. Be prepared by being an asset.
Right. That's fantastic advice. Les, you have gone across the world and had so many experiences, and you brought Canada with you. You brought Canada with you, and a real focus of this program has been on Scouts Canada. And I wonder, what has being Canadian meant for you? What does Canada mean for you?
Home.
Mm,
It's so home for me. Um, Luck. I'm so lucky to be a Canadian.
right.
We're not perfect. It's not been a perfect ride, but if we want to go comparatively speaking, we are a wonderful place to be. I do spend my life traveling a lot and to some countries more than others. And I can tell you the minute I either drive across the Canadian border or get through customs when I land in Toronto Airport, my whole psyche just sighs. It's just like, oh, I'm home. I'm in Canada. And I just think we are lucky. Again, sure, if we want to be negative, we're not perfect. We've made some mistakes and some horrifying mistakes, but nonetheless, we're trying. We try hard. It's that old, joke about what's it mean to be Canadian. How do you describe being Canadian? Well, it's being as Canadian as you can given the circumstances, and it's kind of nebulous, but it's true. I can tell. I can sit in a restaurant in Brazil and I can look across the restaurant and go, that's a table of Canadians over there. There's just something, you know? And it's a great question to ask me. I'll tell you this, you know that I do music, and for everyone listening to this interview, uh, if they go on YouTube, there's a video I have there called I Am Canadian, and it's a song of mine that I wrote. So, I mean, that should tell you right there.
Lovely.
It's it just for those people who want to be, want to diss Canada and so on. It's like you need to travel around and get some perspective. You will come back home quickly and realize, oh my gosh,
Mm.
I do live in a wonderful, wonderful country. And as I say, in spite of, yes, we have our problems, but man, comparatively speaking, it's my home, man. It's a great place to be.
It is a great place to be. It's a wonderful country.
And I will say too that,
Yeah,
Scouts Canada, I mean, and the history and everything to do with, I mean, Scouts Canada is a leader,
yeah.
I think, amongst Scout world.
Oh,
We
sure.
are a leader in many things, from diversification and just really thinking things through and being progressive and moving forward. And I love Scouts Canada for that.
Well, you mentioned Scouts Canada as a leader, and it is constantly something that has come up on the world stage when we've gone to international conferences and meetings, is that Scouts Canada is a leader in youth leadership in particular, and giving youth the power to make meaningful decisions about their adventures and their development. And there are many young people today who might be watching this interview who have watched your previous Survivorman shows, Beyond Survivorman, etc. And they see not just somebody who is out in the great outdoors teaching the values of natural stewardship, but they see somebody who's genuinely fulfilled in what they do. They see someone who has really seized the opportunity, made the most of it, and made some real good. And I wonder, as some closing notes, what advice do you have for young Canadians today who are looking to find fulfillment in what they do and to make a positive impact on the world around them?
Mm. Firstly, to know deep inside, they need to know that they can. And
Mm,
what I want to say to them, and I'm, it's almost like me saying this to my younger self. If I'm speaking to you directly, whoever might be listening to this, you're right. You're right. Things you're thinking, things you're feeling in your heart, you're right. It's true. And my background wasn't all that advantageous, a little
mm,
dark, but inside, I thought things. I no, I should, I can have adventures. I can do this. And I was right. The
mm.
world around me said I was wrong, but I just knew I was right. And I want youth to understand that in your heart, you're right. Regardless of your external circumstances, make your own opportunities. I've been accused of being an opportunist, and I think the person meant it in a pejorative, which is to say in a negative way, but I take it as a positive. Yes, I am an opportunist. I seek opportunity in everything. And there is truly opportunity in everything. When you travel the world, you do get this perspective of what it's like elsewhere.
Mm.
And as for our what we were just talking about, trust me when I say it's better here. There are places elsewhere that are very difficult. So you may have a very difficult, uh, even dysfunctional world around you that you live in. Maybe it's your family. I hope not, but maybe it is. It was mine. Maybe it's your school. Maybe it's your peers, your neighbors, your neighborhood. Sure. But inside you, absolutely lies the answers. The real answers are inside you. And I want to tell you, you're right. You're absolutely correct. So, so what do you do next? Remember that and take all the steps you can. If they have to be secret steps, take them. If they happen to be steps you need to work towards, and there's 3 steps to get to the big step, or 8 steps to get to the big step, take the steps one by one. If sometimes those steps require you to step away from and outside of negative influences around you, so be it. Obviously, you need to be a responsible human being. You need to care for those who are close to you and around you, but nonetheless, care a lot for yourself and know that it's all possible. And I say this because it took me a long time, but inside, even when I was 8 years old, I still said, nope, nope, that's not true. I know I can do something with this. And I've always believed that. And I'm telling all of you, this is vital. It's as vital for you to hear me and to believe this. I don't want to do believe in yourself. I get that, but that's what believe in yourself means. Understand that in the end, that still small voice that's in there saying, oh, I really would like to lean into doing this. Listen to that voice. You're right. You're absolutely right. Even if everybody else around you says no, you're you're not wrong.
Well, Les, from all of us, of course, at Scouts Canada, we are grateful that you listened to that voice. You are now, of course, our chief scout, and it has
Mm.
been so brilliant to interview you today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, of course, for your service to our organization.
Well, thank you absolutely for the interview. And as always, I just want to say how honored I am to have been bestowed upon me the honor and the privilege of being Canada's Chief Scout. It has been a wonderful few years. The organization has been wonderful to me. And, I'll leave you with this. I think you had asked me, what are some of the things I've been, I got to say, the jamborees that I have made it to and some of the connecting I've done with individual troops. It's the coolest. It's just the coolest thing ever. It's one thing, to do it in Zoom, but when you're standing there and there's 25 in people, scouts in front of you of all ages and stripes, and you're just talking away, it's really cool. I've been really honored to be Canada's Chief Scout, and I'm very, very proud to support everybody listening to this and just say, keep going, man, keep going. And again, the last responsibility chip I like to lay on the table is to those volunteers. Learn those skills so you can teach those skills to our scouts. That it's the more you know, and I know you got to work. I know there's time involved, but learn them because then we can teach the youth.
Thank you, Les. And to everyone at home, thank you so much for joining us. Our next episode, of course, is going to be soon with another great Canadian. He uses their talents to the fullest in the pursuit, of course, of the common good. Thank you so much. Again, I look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers.